we have sent those jets. They are already jets that are part of operations in the region. So they'll be supporting existing Royal Air Force assets with duties such as refueling and so on. But I think it's important that we are able to support our allies and work in this way, because the ultimate objective is to prevent further escalation. That's what we all want. We want to see peace and security and stability in this region.
And is that the UK's key message to Iran at this point, that it's the time to de-escalate, to not sort of inflame things still further?
Yeah, that is exactly it. And there have been conversations going on, as you'd expect, from the foreign secretary with his counterparts, and those conversations are continuing. They're really vitally important that we have those conversations, and that we do stress that the ultimate objective is to prevent further acts and further inflammation of those tensions, because ultimately the only people that lose are the residents of those nations.
And when it comes to the Israeli response, we've already heard from the Israeli government that there will be some kind of response. And I mentioned there will be a Security Council meeting later on today. What's the UK government's message to Israel now? Is it that there should be, no further escalation of tensions, that this needs to end here? I mean, what is our message to them?
So I think this is a very fast moving situation, and I've got to be honest, I'm not close to these discussions in real time. The message that we've always had with Israel, as with all our partners, is that we have to um, support Israel's right to defend itself, but also consider those international rules of engagement that apply in any situation of warfare. That won't change. Israel's our ally, but Israel also needs to remember that lives are at stake, both for its own population and in the wider region. So we will continue with those principles at their heart.
And in terms of, I mean, you've confirmed that there is RAF involvement already. Are we likely to see further involvement from the RAF? I mean, could our forces be involved in shooting down more of these attacks if they were to come?
Look, I think it'd be completely wrong of me to speculate. I'm not a defence minister. We are going back to Parliament actually tomorrow, as you've mentioned. I'm sure there'll be statements from the Defence Secretary then, and there will be more information, and we'll be able to question him about the plans and the UK's posture. But I mean, you can see from the fact that we have sent these jets to the region that we do take this issue very seriously. But I think I would just stress once again that our ultimate objective is to prevent further escalation. That is the overriding mission of our country and our nation and of our military assets.
Yeah. And in terms of UK nationals who are in those areas at the moment or thinking about travelling to Israel or potentially to that region, what's the message to them?
The message to them is that the travel is very unsafe, and you shouldn't go unless there's any it's exceptional reason. Just check the Foreign Office website. I would make sure that you check that regularly if you are needing to go to the region, because that advice can change very quickly. And so you must always check it if you are thinking or needing to travel to that area.
Yeah. I want to move on to talk about something that is likely to dominate domestic politics this week. It is, of course, the Rwanda bill, which is back up in the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Does the government have a carrier for those flights yet? Have you arranged somebody to take people to Rwanda?
I'm sure that we will have a carrier in place, and this is all part of operationalising the plan. I mean, we need this plan because we need to have the deterrent effect. I mean, I'm out and about at the moment talking to people at the local elections, and there is a real concern about the scale of illegal migration into the country. And so, this is a really important component of our plan to make sure that we tackle that at its source, and we make sure that people do not come to our country illegally, break our law, and take advantage of our generous hospitality.
You say that you think the government will have a carrier, which doesn't sound like there is one in place at the moment. Is the Prime Minister still on track for flights to leave in the spring?
Absolutely.
So that's guaranteed to happen no matter what.
Yeah, that's what the Prime Minister said, and I'm sure that's what he will deliver.
I mean, how are you going to deliver that though? Because it's not made it through the House of Lords yet. The Lords are likely to add things back into the bill, which means it has to go back to the House of Commons, and then it is likely to face legal challenge. I mean, how long does spring go on for?
Well, we've seen this parliamentary ping pong. It's a standard process. We'll see it again, no doubt. I think we are going to have the bill in front of us on Monday and again on Wednesday. Of course, their lordships will add things onto it, but I'm confident that we will defeat them when it comes back to the Commons, as we normally do. In the House of Lords, ultimately, it's not an elected chamber. They will scrutinise it, but it's not their role to stand in the way of enacting things that the elected government decides to do.
Do you think you could have it cleared all its stages by the end of next week?
Yes, my understanding is that's what that's what the intention is to happen.
So then in that case, the government must already be planning to put people on those flights. How many will take off on the first plane?
Uh, Again, I can't give you these details about the operational details, but what I do know is that the Home Office and the Home Secretary will be making all the preparations so that we can get people on the planes, because ultimately that's what this is all about. This deterrent will only work if it's visible. So people will need to see those planes taking off, and that will be when we can actually break the business model. Let's not forget what this is all about. It's not really about planes to Rwanda. It's about breaking the business model of those smuggling gangs, who are those people who are ruthlessly and unethically and completely immorally selling transport across the channel to people uh, with no regard at all to their life. Those are the people that we want to target here, because once they realize that there is no way that they can come to this country and stay here, those evil and immoral criminals will not be able to sell those flights anymore, those journeys anymore. And that's when we will be able to actually crack this problem, because we have to deal with it on that level. I mean, any other idea that you can stop the boats by any other method, I'm afraid, is completely unproven and will not work. You have to have this visible deterrent. That's why we need to get it. We need to get it working.
In your political career, you've worked a lot on women and women's rights. I wonder, do you agree with Kemi Badenoch, who's written in the Sunday Times this weekend, that uh, politicians, universities, National Health Service, this is all, of course, coming out from the Cass report on the Tavistock Clinic, have shown cowardice over gender?
I strongly agree with her. Yes, she's completely right to say that.
Who are you pointing your finger at?
I, I am. I'm not. I don't do finger pointing.
Well,
I am
accusing someone of cowardice is finger pointing. So who are you pointing at?
not in my book. No, it's making the comment that there are various institutions that have been set up to be independent, and we have given them autonomy over vast amounts of very important policy areas, such as dealing with young people who are experiencing distress. And instead of being independent, they have adopted an ideology which has led to more harm than good for those young people and has failed those young people. That's what I am saying, and I'm agreeing with what Kemi
But
Badenoch
where
said.
does the cowardice come in not standing up to them, not taking them on?
Yeah, that's right. They haven't been brave enough to take on the very loud voices in this space, who have been attacking people for doing their job and thinking about safeguarding of very vulnerable young people. And it could be that there are people who are genuinely confused, uh, professionals who are genuinely confused about the whole issue. But I think there are also a number of them who have just turned the other cheek because it's been easy to do so. Because to actually speak out and say this is wrong is very difficult in that professional context when everybody else is telling you something different.
Rachel Maclean, before we let you go, I just have to ask you, we're speaking to Yvette Cooper in a moment. There are suggestions from the Labour Party that attacks against Angela Rayner for her property, ways that she paid tax or didn't pay tax, and the electoral register are politically motivated, that this is a plot by the Tories to embarrass Angela Rayner. What do you say to that?
Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? The fact is that Angela Rayner herself has got form on this. She has consistently called for various very senior members of my party to resign or step down or leave office.
Yeah, most
Uh,
of who did step down because they agreed they'd done something wrong.
if I can just finish my point, she called for them to resign before the outcome of any investigation was known. That was what she consistently did on a number of occasions. The minute anybody was under investigation, before there was any conclusion, she called for them to step down. She's done that a number of times, and yet it's one rule for her and another rule for the Conservative Party. It seems, because it's okay for her to carry on in her role while the investigation is taking place. So I think it does cast a pall over Keir Starmer's judgment on this matter.
Rachel Maclean, thank you for joining us this morning.